Look at this. This poverty for real. This ain't no fake. Did you ever in your life think you could be this big? Kodak Black went from escaping real poverty and building a rap empire to watching everything slowly fall apart. From gun charges and sexual assault allegations to public meltdowns and battles with drugs. It all started crashing down around him. The wrong thing. Take a seat next to him. Take a seat next to him. So, how does someone rise a high and still lose his way like this? Let me break it down. Handcuffs, lawsuits, and a murder tied to his name. Yo, fam, let's talk about this brother Kodak before it all went downhill. By 2014, Kodak Black had already gone double platinum with No Flocking. A year later, Skirt was threading through playlists across the country. Drake had delivered the cosign that every Florida rapper was chasing, and Atlantic Records had come to the table with a real deal for a kid from the public housing projects of Pompano Beach, raised by a single mother with nothing handed to him. That was not just a come-up. That was a generational shift. In the making, the talent was undeniable. The backing was in place. The ceiling looked like it had no limit. Then, before the Atlantic Incorporated had even dried properly, October 2015 arrived, and Kodak was already in handcuffs. At just 18 years old, he picked up charges for robbery, battery, kidnapping, false imprisonment, driving with suspended license, and marijuana possession, all from one incident where he allegedly forced people into his car over a suspected home break-in. The same week, he was collecting cosigns from rap, royalty. He was also stacking criminal charges that read like a crime novel. December 2015 brought another marijuana possession case in St. Lucie County. The buzzing mainstream attention that Drake's endorsement had generated was now sharing space with police reports. Promoters got nervous fast. The Next Big Thing label was in direct competition with the troubled rapper label. And once that competition starts, it rarely resolves cleanly in the artist's favor. What made the image problem worse was not just the frequency of the arrests, it was the timing. Kodak had a narrow window that most rappers from his background only get once. The early 2016 period should have been about capitalizing on that window, touring, building catalog, locking in strategic collaborations. Instead, he was navigating a house arrest sentence attached to 5 years of probation, mandatory community service, and anger management requirements. Every clause in that probation agreement was a chain on a career that needed to move freely. Labels started asking questions about liability. Promoters started building cancellation clauses into booking agreements. The machinery of the industry does not wait for anyone to sort their personal life out. Then came February 2016, the accusation that would follow Kodak for 5 years and cost him more than any other single moment in his career. A woman accused him of first-degree criminal sexual conduct after performance in South Carolina. The case was indicted in 2017, carrying a potential 30-year sentence. That allegation poisoned his brand in every room where mainstream money was being discussed. Brand deals disappeared. Crossover opportunities closed off. The rising star narrative was now permanently sharing headlines with rape accusation, and those two things do not coexist cleanly in any commercial conversation. He eventually resolved the case in 2021 by pleading to a lesser charge of first-degree assault and battery, receiving 18 months of probation with no additional jail time. But 5 years of an open sexual assault case is not something a public reputation absorbs quietly or without permanent scarring. Between 2017 and 2018, the probation violations kept stacking like parking tickets nobody was paying. In May 2017, he was sentenced to 364 days in jail for violating his house arrest terms, serving roughly 97 of those days before coming back out. A January 2018 home raid produced a stolen firearm, ammunition, and marijuana, while an Instagram live session had already documented a child visible near the contraband, which meant a child neglect charge was added to the pile. Another 364-day sentence followed with approximately 7 months served before an August 2018 release. His album Dying to Live still debuted at #1 on the Billboard chart that year. The talent was actively trying to save the career, while everything surrounding it worked to destroy it. This is where it all went messy. The interviews from this period painted a picture of someone who had become increasingly unpredictable and unfiltered whenever a camera was pointed at him, behavior that would define his public presence for years to come. That kind of casually unguarded admission in the middle of a recorded interview is exactly the pattern that kept media cycles running on his name and made label executives deeply uncomfortable. Every candid moment became a potential liability. Another clip for the Is He OK compilation. Then 2019 came, and the damage went federal. In May, federal agents arrested him at Rolling Loud Miami on charges of making false statements on firearm purchase forms. He had lied about his criminal history when buying guns in 2019. He pleaded guilty in November. The sentence, 46 months in federal prison, served at a high-security facility in Big Sandy, Kentucky. While incarcerated, he filed a lawsuit against facility staff alleging abuse during his time there, a lawsuit he later dropped. Hip-hop's streaming era was accelerating outside those walls, and Kodak was missing every single moment of it. His peers were building catalogs, signing deals, and claiming real estate in the culture that Kodak had been positioned to occupy. President Donald Trump commuted his sentence in January 2021, citing charitable work after roughly 10 to 12 months actually served. The postpartum comeback run. Super Gremlin cracking number 3 on the Hot 100. Back for Everything. Debuting at number 2 on the Billboard chart showed the entire industry what he was capable of with an unobstructed runway. But freedom for Kodak has always come with a short expiration date. Now, let's talk about the violent streak, because this story is not just probation paperwork and drug possession charges. Prosecutors in multiple Florida cases labeled Kodak a habitual violent offender as far back as 2019. His early arrest record included armed robbery and aggravated assault. In 2016, during a police chase, he discarded a loaded Glock mid-flight while fleeing officers. The 2018 home raid turned up a stolen firearm. At least one of the guns he purchased through the fraudulent forms in 2019 was later connected to an attempted shooting of a rival rapper. Though Kodak was never directly charged with that specific act, the violent energy was not exclusively reserved for gun-related situations. It showed up in person in front of cameras during completely mundane interactions. Do you think your jewelry sold you diamond or poison? No. Hey, is it cool if I test one of them? That exchange started as a YouTuber asking to test his jewelry, essentially a setup to complement the authenticity of his chain. A reasonable person says yes and gets free content. Not Kodak. It's like testing your gangster. Oh, testing my drip. Yeah, that's like testing my manhood. A diamond tester becomes a personal challenge to his identity. That escalation from 0 to hostile in under 10 seconds is the same pattern that shows up across every chapter of his story. And it is exactly the kind of behavior that has made industry gatekeepers reluctant to build long-term commercial infrastructure around him. A man who reads a jewelry test as an attack on his manhood is operating at a permanent defensive elevation that affects every relationship around him. The most documented violent incident in his recent history was not one he caused directly, but one his lifestyle placed him squarely in the center of. February 12, 2022, Super Bowl 56 weekend. The Nice Guy restaurant in West Hollywood. A private after-party hosted by Justin Bieber. A confrontation erupted as people exited. Shots were fired, and Kodak caught one in the leg. Non-life-threatening, treated and released quickly. But 2 other men, Mark Schaefer and Adam Rahman, were also struck by gunfire. Their legal team, led by Gloria Allred, filed a civil lawsuit arguing Kodak's conduct had escalated the situation into violence. The initial demand was $62 million. A judge reduced the target to approximately $10. $6 million, widely reported in headlines as a $10 million lawsuit. Kodak's attorney, Bradford Cohen, went on record calling it one of the most absurd legal actions he had encountered and threatened a full countersuit. That civil case hung over everything else Kodak was dealing with for 4 full years. Then in March 2026, the plaintiffs dropped the entire suit. No settlement paid, no refiling rights granted. a clean legal win for his team, but 4 years of civil liability headlines had already completed their work on public perception. The Jack Boy chapter of this story carries a weight that no court victory can lift. Jack Boy, real name Pierre Dance, was once one of Kodak's most trusted people. They came up together in Pompo Beach, with Jack Boy connecting to Atlantic Records through Kodak's early influence, collaborating on music and running in the same tight circle. The falling out around 2020 to 2021 happened publicly and turned bitter fast. Money disputes, contract accusations, social media shots go in both directions. Kodak posted publicly about profiting from work connected to Jack Boy, calling him ungrateful. Jack Boy responded with accusations of snitching and business betrayal. The kind of beef that in the streets does not stay on social media indefinitely. Even people on the periphery understood when it was time to stop claiming connections out loud. Because by January 2023, this dispute was no longer being settled in comment sections. The gun reference surfacing in that interrogation context is not incidental. It underlines just how deep into real-world territory the fallout from this feud had traveled, and it foreshadows what was coming. January 16, 2023, after a Jack Boy performance at the Bar nightclub in Sanford, Florida, a van carrying 6 women leaving the concert was hit by a drive-by shooting on Reinhardt Road. Armor-piercing bullets. Princess Toweaver, 31 years old, from Tallahassee, was killed. 5 other women were injured. Not one of them was the intended target. It was mistaken identity at the most tragic possible scale. After a 13-month investigation, Seminole County Sheriff Dennis Lima announced 13 arrests, directly naming the feud between Jack Boy and Kodak Black as the likely motive driving members of the On Top Forever gang to the scene that night. The gang had targeted Jack Boy associates after his performance and hit the wrong vehicle. He rapped, "I used to look up, your heat, I got more bread." That lyric captures the personal resentment that was fueling these disputes long before anyone fired a shot. Bars thrown casually in music that in the streets carry consequences that extend far beyond the recording session. Kodak was not charged. Jack Boy was not charged. But the CO County Sheriff stood at that press conference podium and said both their names as a context for why Princess Toweaver did not make a home that night. That is a burden that does not get dismissed with a drop lawsuit. It follows the name permanently. And what was already following Kodak into Part 2 would make the legal troubles look like a warm-up. The drug fueling Kodak's public downfall. Kodak's drug history did not announce itself with a single dramatic turning point. It was embedded in the music from the beginning. Casual references to lean and pills woven through his lyrics, the same way other rappers talked about champagne and private jets. Through the mid-2010s, it read as persona, as style, as part of the aesthetic he was constructing around himself. The industry was not alarmed. Most people in his circle were not, treating it as a clinical concern. But once he came out of federal prison in 2021, the substance use stopped being background texture and lyrics and became documented evidence in courtrooms. And from there, it graduated to viral footage that millions of fans were watching in real time, getting progressively harder to defend or explain away. The first major documented crisis came in September 2021, while Kodak was unsupervised. Released from his federal firearms conviction, he failed a drug test. Marijuana and MDMA came back positive, violating the terms of his release. A judge ordered 90 days of inpatient rehabilitation. He went through the full program and completed it by December 2021. His attorney confirmed the court was satisfied. Kodak described himself as clean and sober and talked about refocusing everything on music. The comeback that followed, Super Gremlin, cracking the top 3 on the Hot 100, looked like proof the program had worked and the discipline had taken hold. It had not. His post-comeback stability started unraveling almost immediately after being shot in the leg. At the Super Bowl afterparty in February 2022, Kodak received a legitimate oxycodone prescription for pain management connected to his injuries. That legitimate prescription became a serious problem fast. By July 2022, police pulled him over and found 31 oxycodone pills and a large amount of cash in his car. Trafficking and possession charges landed immediately. He claimed the prescription was valid. The court placed him on house arrest with mandatory drug testing as a pre-trial condition. Then in February 2023, he missed a required test entirely. And when he finally submitted to one, the result came back positive for fentanyl, not just prescription opioids. Fentanyl, the synthetic drug responsible for the majority of overdose deaths in the United States. A Broward County judge issued an arrest warrant and ordered a 30-day inpatient rehab stint, allowing him to first perform at Rolling Loud, California. Think about that detail for a moment. A man with fentanyl in his system getting a hall pass to perform a major festival before checking into treatment. The industry's relationship with this specific kind of behavior is its own separate conversation. By December 2023, he was arrested again, found asleep in a car facing cocaine possession and evidence tampering charges. He denied the cocaine on Instagram Live, said it was lean, blamed the whole situation on his post-shooting prescription opioid use. But he also said something in that live that cut right through the defensiveness, that he had voluntarily spent $350,000 on rehab, completely separate from anything a court ordered him to do because he wanted to be better for his children. That was not calculated. That was a man who understood the scope of the damage and had tried to address it on his own terms before any judge could make the decision for him. In 2024, the public finally got the most honest accounting he had ever offered about exactly how severe the addiction had actually become. He admitted that at the height of his percoate dependency, he was consuming up to 100 pills a day, averaging around 40. He told fans directly that surviving that stretch was luck. The counterfeit percoate market was saturated with fentanyl-laced pills, and at the volume he was moving through, one wrong batch would have been the last batch. He said he did not want anyone looking at his past as a lifestyle blueprint. For stretches of 2024, he told interviewers and live audiences he was sober for the most part, could go several days without substances, and was no longer afraid of what being clean actually felt like. For a man who had just confessed to consuming 40 pills a day at his worst, that was real movement. That reaction pulled from the Kidnat stream captured in about 8 seconds what fans have been feeling every single time a new clip surfaced. Because in November 2024, whatever genuine progress had been made started unwinding on camera again in the most public way possible. He appeared on Kiznat's Twitch marathon Mafian 2 and clips immediately went viral, showing him appearing to take a percoate on camera. The streaming chat reacted with immediate concern from fans who have been following his addiction story for years. His response to that concern was combative. He doubled down on Instagram Live afterward, taking another pill on camera while telling his audience they were overreacting and minding business that was not theirs. He had gone from publicly spending $350,000 on voluntary rehab to openly using on live broadcasts within a single calendar year. By September 2025, he was driving on Interstate 95 Live on Instagram, sipping lean straight from the bottle, visibly unfocused in moving traffic within. Audience watching. The casual delivery of that line, knowing what was actually in the bottle while he said it and what lane he was driving in, is the kind of moment fans screenshot and share with nothing but a prayer emoji attached. In May 2025, a freestyle verse referenced a meth habit. Some called it lyrical exaggeration. Given the documented history, the internet was not feeling charitable toward that interpretation. Concert footage circulating at the same time made the freestyle reference feel almost secondary. Multiple clips from late 2024 through early 2026 showed security physically holding Kodak upright on stage, not as a performance element, but to prevent him from losing balance entirely. Reports of 9-hour late arrivals to scheduled events. Visible disorientation mid-set. Boozy Badass responded publicly to the stage footage with what looked like genuine concern rather than competitive commentary. And Boozy is not typically the voice of restraint on anything. The offstage controversies ran parallel to every drug incident with the same consistent frequency. In 2017, he stated on Instagram Live that he did not prefer black women, expressing colorism-based preferences that drew immediate widespread condemnation from the black community. In 2018, he walked out a Hot 97 interview with Ibro Darden after roughly 15 minutes when the host brought up the pending South Carolina sexual assault case. Running from that question on a live broadcast cost him far more than a calm, measured answer would have. In April 2019, days after Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed, Kodak went on Instagram Live and announced his intention to pursue Lauren London romantically, suggesting she would need about a year to grieve first. He framed it as a compliment to her character. The entire internet disagreed with that, framing in the clearest possible terms. Radio stations announced boycotts of his music. He issued an apology, but the statement had already completed its full circuit across every platform, and no apology travels as fast as the original offense. Then, December 2025 delivered the most explosive offstage controversy in years. On a December 16th Instagram Live, with prescription bottles visible in the frame throughout, Kodak delivered a rambling monologue stating he was not mad at slavery, blamed Africans for the transatlantic slave trade, and questioned why enslaved people had not resisted with more force. Historians, activists, community leaders, and fans lit up every platform simultaneously. The clip went everywhere. The pattern that had defined his offstage behavior for nearly a decade: impulsive live stream, inflammatory statement, instant viral spread, brief apology, or extended silence, ran its course exactly as it always had. And each time the cycle repeats, the mainstream industry's patience shortens a little more. Rehab, relapses, and the kids in the crossfire. The rehabilitation chapter of Kodak's story deserves its own honest reckoning for real, because the effort has been real, and it keeps not being enough to hold the line. 2 major court-mandated inpatient programs completed reported $350,000 spent voluntarily on private treatment. Multiple platforms used consistently to share sobriety updates and warn young fans away from the path he traveled. The intention on multiple documented occasions was genuine. The problem is that the relapses have been as consistent and as public as every recovery announcement made before them. The first court-ordered stint came in September 2021 after Kodak failed drug tests while unsupervised release from his federal conviction. The judge ordered 90 days of inpatient treatment. He went through the entire program and completed it by December 2021, with attorney Bradford Cohen confirming the court was pleased and the probation violation formally lifted. Coming out of facility, Kodak described himself as clean and sober and talked about refocusing everything on music and touring. For a while, the chart performance backed that energy. Super Gremlin, Back for Everything, debuting at number 2. The post-rehab window produced some of the strongest commercial results of his entire career. It looked sustainable. It was not. The second court-ordered program arrived in early 2023, ordered by Broward County Judge Barbara Duffy after Kodak missed a required drug test and then came back positive for fentanyl on the follow-up. 30 days inpatient tied directly to the live oxycodone trafficking case that was still working through the courts. The judge gave him permission to delay entry until after performing at Rolling Loud, California, a grace that said as much about how the entertainment industry gets accommodated in legal proceedings as it said about anything else. He performed at the festival, then he checked in. That underlying oxycodone case was eventually partially dismissed after prescription documentation was verified in court. The legal paperwork was resolved. The dependency that generated the paperwork did not. In December 2023, Kodak went on Instagram Live following the cocaine possession arrest and offered what was arguably the most transparent accounting of his addiction he had ever given publicly. He said he had entered rehab voluntarily on at least one occasion. His decision, not a judge's order. He had spent $350,000 of his own money on treatment. He tied it directly to fatherhood. He was trying to get better specifically for his children. For fans who have been tracking the chaos for years, that version of Kodak was jarring in the best possible way. A man looking clearly at what the addiction had cost him and making a financial commitment to fix it unprompted. That moment, easy, warm, completely unguarded, is a Kodak that fans who have followed him since Pompano Beach have always been rooting for. The version of him that can show up for people with genuine grace. Those moments are real, but they keep getting interrupted by the cycle. In June 2024, at a concert that got captured and shared widely, he addressed the Super Gremlin lyric about knowingly consuming a fake percoate. He told the crowd the line was not autobiographical. He had never actually done that consciously at that scale. He said if he had consumed a counterfeit pill during the peak of his addiction, when he was moving through 40 to 100 a day, fentanyl would have ended his life before the song charted. He did not want young people treating that bar as aspirational content. Then in July 2024, he announced he would stop performing Super Gremlin Live entirely as part of his commitment to sobriety, one of the biggest records of his career, pulled from setlist as a public statement of accountability. That is not a small decision for any artist, let alone one whose live show had been built significantly around that hit's energy. For a meaningful stretch of 2024, the sobriety reports held consistent. He told audiences and interviewers he was sober for the most part, that going several days without substances no longer felt like climbing a mountain, and that the fear of being clean had started to lose its grip on him. The progress was visible. Then, November 2024 landed, and on a live session, he flatly declared, "I'm never sober." Not as a confession seeking understanding or intervention, but as a combative reply to people asking questions about his choices. The gap between that declaration and the man who had spent $350,000 voluntarily on treatment to be better for his children was impossible to bridge with any rational explanation. Fans who have been rooting for the progress understood exactly what that live session meant. As of early 2026, no new court-ordered rehab program has been publicly confirmed. Though probation concerns and ongoing legal monitoring persist, several older drug cases have been dismissed through the courts. The $10 million Super Bowl lawsuit is gone, but the cycle of claim recovery followed by public relapse continues running without a clear interruption point. And behind that cycle are 5 children who did not choose any of it. Now to the part of the story that gets the least coverage, but carries the most actual weight: the kids. Kodak has 5 children with 4 different women, 3 sons and 2 daughters. The youngest being Prince Vulture Octave Capri, born on January 1st, 2025, managing 5 children across 4 separate relationships while simultaneously navigating federal probation, court-mandated treatment, active criminal cases, and the kind of public controversies that trend nationally every few months is not just complicated. It is a sustained family crisis that plays out in the background of everything else he does. The custody dispute that went most public in 2025 involved his ex-girlfriend Miranda Johnson, the mother of his youngest daughter and son. In August 2025, court documents and police reports became public showing Johnson had accused Kodak of repeatedly beating her throughout their relationship, including an incident when she was 7 months pregnant. She alleged he struck her hard enough to dislocate her jaw on at least one documented occasion. She brought it to Instagram Live directly, stating that she had previously stayed silent about the abuse specifically to protect his public image. She also filed for a minimum of $56,000 per month in child support plus attorney fees. The filing had every element designed to go viral, and it did. Kodak's legal team moved to file for full custody in response, citing documented incidents involving Johnson. She was accused of using a brick to smash windshields on his luxury vehicles and was connected to a January 2025 nightclub brawl involving other mothers of his children, in a sequence of events that is hard to script any. More dramatically, she was arrested at the Broward County Courthouse during an August 2025 custody hearing, taken into custody on the vehicle vandalism charges while the hearing was still in motion. Her attorney called it an intimidation tactic tied to the custody push. No criminal domestic violence charges were ever filed against Kodak from the allegations. The entire matter settled confidentially in September 2025 with a parenting plan in place and multiple lawsuits dismissed. But a parenting plan governs scheduling and finances. It cannot undo what those children have already grown up watching unfold in public, on live streams, and in news. Headlines: what his children are growing up with is a father who loves them enough to spend $350,000 trying to get clean specifically for them, and simultaneously chaotic enough to use substances openly on camera during the same period he said it. That contradiction is the whole story compressed into its most personal form. The talent has always been undeniable. The intention has shown up repeatedly in real ways through money spent, programs completed, and public statements that require genuine vulnerability. But the cycle, arrest, release, comeback, relapse, viral incident, court date, repeat, has now run longer than most hip-hop careers last from start to finish. As of March 2026, Kodak Black is still performing, still posting, still releasing music, and still generating headlines that have nothing to do with the music itself. The story is not finished, but anyone who has followed it honestly cannot honestly claim to know how it ends. Thank you for watching, fam. Until next time, don't forget to click on that card showing on the screen for more of such clips